Now on to the serious news, gents. We've had Santa denial, which is serious news to be fair. We've had ho-ho-hos, which is Stelios' favourite kind of news. Now we're going to look into the dark side of global governance and the people who are actually controlling the world. Because for a long time, I've heard people talking about this company called Palantir. Whenever some big government initiative begins, I see people commenting on things saying that, oh great, well this is going to be another contract for Palantir to gobble up. And I always thought to myself, well, who are these guys and why do people seem so distrustful of them? So in preparation for this, I've taken the past week or so to start looking into them. And I will say, having looked into them, I also am very wary of them, do not trust them, and think they are an incredibly shady organisation. So who are Palantir? Well, they're essentially a spyware and AI digital infrastructure company that produce a number of different products that are mainly sold to governments and government agencies to help them in whatever goal it is that they're pursuing at the time. So you can go onto their website and find a little bit of this sort of information where they're talking about their focus on creating the world's best user experiences for working with data, empowers people to ask and answer complex questions, building platforms for integrating, managing and securing data, on top of which we layer applications for fully interactive, human-driven, machine-assisted analysis. They're a big company behind the LLM, the language learning model. So a lot of your things like, I think ChatGPT and other AI chat helpers work off of LLMs. Palantir are a big company behind this, and you can see some of the platforms that they have. These are their 4 main platforms. They've got AIP, they've got Foundry, they've got Gotham, and they've got Apollo. The most important one I want to look at here, just very briefly, is the Gotham software, which is used as part of AI digital weapons systems.
It's also quite a sinister name, considering in the Batman universe, of which Gotham City is, a setting, they have the device which uses everyone's phones to create a 3D map of the entire city.
Yes, which is the sort of thing that the CEO of this company, a man called Alex Karp, who we'll get into a little bit more later, because given that he is the head of this company, that makes him one of the most powerful men in the world, I think it's pretty reasonable to want to know who he is, what he's after, what drives him, what motivates him, what his end goals are. So he would not care too much about you comparing it that way. He would say, yeah, sounds about right, tough luck. If you don't like that, get over it. They're very, very brazen, or at least he is very brazen, about the fact that his company has been used as spyware, and he says that this is a very good thing. And again, some of the things that they do, as we'll find out, seem to be based around managing outcomes for governments that you could see as being beneficial to the government. So, for instance, they help ICE, they want to help track down in the UK, they want to help track down, say, benefits frauds. People like that using these AI data management tools to be able to identify people who are most likely to have been benefit cheats. So that sounds like it could be a good thing, but the problem is that being a global organization and having every system in the West, in the UK, in the US, run through them means that they have a ridiculous amount of power and access to basically everybody's information at all times. But for instance, the Gotham has been used in Ukraine, as far as I'm aware, to help them to identify enemy targets and make targeted strikes on them of the kind that would never have been available before this. So, when you see the footage coming from the front lines of Ukraine, where they're fighting against Russians, and you see all of the drone warfare that's going on, because that's one of the big innovations that's come from this, a lot of that seems to be backed by Palantir. They're creating the software that makes it so those drones can be as efficient as possible. In the UK, as I mentioned, they're already set up here. They work with the NHS. They, as they say on here, have been proud to serve the NHS since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, when our software helped distribute ventilators and PPE where patients needed them most. They also helped to roll out the vaccines, and that meant that the Palantir software was used to determine where the vaccines needed to go, and were also used to help track down people who weren't vaccinated. So it was helping to make sure people who didn't want to take this new vaccine It was making sure that you were able to find them and target them. So that seems to me to be somewhat of a shady thing, but they say more recently our software has been helping a number of NHS trusts to reduce waiting lists and drive up the use of operating theatres. It enables patients to be treated sooner. So again, with this kind of technology, there's always a give and a take, right? There are good applications that it can be used for, bad applications that it can be used for. I'm not necessarily looking at the fact that this technology can be used as a tool for good and bad. I'm looking at the company itself and the people, specifically Alex Karp, who runs it, and saying, do I trust this technology in their hands? Do I trust that they have the best interests of everybody, of all of their clients?
So you're not looking at the potential of the technology per se, more so the intentions of the people wielding it.
Yes, and I will say personally as well, when it comes to big shady companies like this and AI in general, I am not eager for a world in which we are ruled by massive AI systems that have been programmed by untrustworthy people. Because the artificial part of artificial intelligence is, to me, the most important part of this. At the end of the day, it's all still running on algorithms and machine learning, right? Which will be determined mainly by the people who develop this technology. We saw with ChatGPT and the other ones when they first rolled out that, yeah, they were able to have amazing pattern recognition that made them racist. And immediately the people who made that pulled all of that out and basically gave it brain damage to stop it from being racist. Mm-hmm. And it's the same sort of thing that'll be going with this, where the people who program it are able to manipulate it to basically get whatever ends they want.
It's going to create a massive centralization of power is what's going to happen. And of course, if you rule via machine, you can tweak the code in the background and no one is any the wiser. And if you do it smartly, you tweak it gradually over time, who knows what you can do to a populace with this kind of technology. It is absolutely terrifying for the future. And I think that we think our tyranny now is bad. At least, you can see through it to a certain extent because it's still done by human beings and we have an understanding of it. And considering most people don't understand machine learning models, we don't have the first, we don't even know the first thing about how to address the problem in the first place, let alone how to address the tyranny that it's going to.
Well, it's inherently globalist. Mm-hmm. If you bring all of the West's governmental systems under this, that, as you say, centralizes all of it and sort of pushes us further into a form of global governance.
I imagine the one world government conspiracy theorists are going to have an absolute field day with this company.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, they're also aiding ICE. They've got a multi-million-dollar contract with the ICE to store data on illegal immigrants' purchases, calls, and movements, so it could help track them down. They also have massively increased their stock due to a U.S. Special Operations Command contract. The agreement, which is valued at $36 million for 1 year alone, designates Palantir as the primary software integrator for U.S. SOCOM's Mission Command System. Again, just another bit of massive, very, very important infrastructure being brought under them. They got a $480 million pound contract on NHS to run their data platform. It awarded them a contract for the federated data platform to the US spy technology firm Palantir in the face of opposition from the BMA, the Doctors Association, Patients Group, and privacy campaigners. The FDP is designed to overcome a structural flaw in the NHS's management of data. Over time, a wide variety of data storage software has been used within and outside hospitals, general practices, and other care providers, but the software has struggled to talk with other programs, making it difficult to transfer patient records between hospitals. So it seems that this technology is going to be used to aid in that process.
Because, of course, the NHS has actually been held to ransom by hackers quite a few times, which is crazy to me that can even be allowed to happen. You'd think that'd be a matter of national security, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would, but instead they're handing it over to these guys instead. And again, if you think that the problem with liberal democracy in its diffused state as it exists right now is the fact that nobody is accountable whatsoever to anything ever, every single problem that pops up is, well, that's above my pay grade, I can't handle that, that's somebody else's job. Imagine how bad it'll be when all of the decisions are being made by AIs. Nobody will be held accountable because there will be no human face to it, and I'd rather be governed by other human beings than technology. But carrying on, They've also lobbied UK disabilities ministers so that they can try and help tackle benefit fraud. Again, this can be seen as something that would be good for the UK, because I think we should tackle benefit fraud, absolutely. The problem is that this would bring another area of our government, and remember, this is a foreign company, this is a US company, under the control of Palantir. So it may look like a good thing, but it's really them extending their power. And then there's the fact that it would also probably get rolled into Tony Blair's plans for the NHS. Now, they don't actually mention Palantir explicitly in this, because what they're talking about is Tony Blair's plans to use AI to fix the NHS, by shutting down GPs and replacing them with AI chatbots instead, which doesn't sound great. But it doesn't mention Palantir here explicitly, but if you scroll down to the bottom, they have tagged Palantir in related organisations, because I do think that we know that if this was to be made reality, they would probably be the ones handling it, right? And as I mentioned, they've also been doing stuff with Ukraine. This is Alex Karp, by the way, and if you wanted him to seem like a normal and trustworthy person, I don't know why you'd go with this picture. But that's neither here nor there. Alex Karp himself studied under the University of Goethe, I believe, and did German philosophy directly underneath Jürgen Habermas.
Oh, that's concerning.
He also, in this Telegraph article, obviously it talks a lot about the history of the company, which I'll get into in a few minutes, and it talks about what they've been doing with Ukraine, how they've been using their AI technology, not just to help with finding all of these different targets, but also to help unearth likely locations for what they're deeming as Russian war crimes as well. Like, they're trying to use this pattern recognition technology to determine where mass graves may be buried, which is very interesting. But he notes a number of times here that things like he's an economic progressive, I'm massively left of centre. I believe there's one article where he actively describes himself as a neo-Marxist. So it's all what I want to hear from a man at the head of one of the most powerful companies in the entire world. There's more information here about it all. But if I carry on, let's start talking more specifically about Alex Karp. And all of this is very, very public information. So just this one as well. They're talking about his career rise. And they also say that, after they've been taking all of these contracts on, they've had these huge spikes in their stock.
That background in the picture is the icing on the cake, isn't it?
That's funny, isn't it? But he says that, in regard to the breach of privacy that his technology just inherently causes, he says, you may not agree with that, and bless you, don't work here. He said of tech workers who have qualms about the company's data mining. We don't like people who are coming in and saying, we want to kill terrorists and just do it without data protection. Bless your soul if you want to distribute carcinogens with your great intellect in the form of consumer internet. He's not exactly, I've watched a few interview clips with him, he's not the most eloquent speaker, as you might be able to tell. But basically what he's saying there is we kill terrorists. They always like to say that they kill terrorists or provide the technology that helps to identify terrorists and then kill them and prevent terror attacks. And if that means that we have to completely destroy any kind of civil liberty that you have as an individual citizen, then we're more than willing to do it. The Patriot Act in America was the blessing for these kinds of people who are like, great, we have absolute carte blanche to spy on our citizens for the sake of saying, oh, we're fighting the war on terror. Yeah, because that's why the US government really wants to spy on its citizens in it, because they just care about you so much. George W. Bush cared about the citizens so much. Dick Cheney just wanted to make sure that you, American citizen, were safe at home from terrorism. No, they just wanted to spy on you.
I can tell you what's going to happen here. What's going to happen is this sort of thing is going to be plug into the pre-existing surveillance architecture, and it's going to monitor all citizens' internet usage, data usage, and it's going to create a model in which it's going to, you don't even necessarily need to view something that is controversial or illegal, but it will have predictive utility in saying, well, you're more likely to potentially do this thing, and it's going to lead to the justification of pre-crime, where people...
Minority Report, isn't
it? It is, yeah. They're going to go out of their way and say you're on the track of committing a crime, and this will come about with this sort of technology if the philosophy of governance does not change.
Yeah, I agree completely, which is what makes it so worrying. So Alex Karp is already recognized by places like Fortune as one of the most 100 powerful businessmen in the world. He does have a net worth of about $7 billion, I think, which is unsurprising. But at the same time, the whole reason for him coming about in the first place in this position is very strange, because as I mentioned, he went to law school with Peter Thiel, and he then went on to do a PhD University of Germany a German philosophy degree in Goethe under Jürgen Habermas, and then was basically just handed the CEO position to this company by Peter Thiel.
Mm-hmm. Anything to say on Habermas, Stelios?
I just want to say philosophy degrees sometimes give good career prospects.
Have you ever been handed...
Thanks for that marketing department for philosophy department.
Have you ever been handed the CEO position to a massive shady spy corporation?
Yeah, and I said no, because I want to come here with you guys.
You're a man with morals in that case. Not
I want to be
not an Alex Karp. But he writes his letter to shareholders in 2020. The company went public. Before then, unsurprisingly, they'd been operating for about 17 years, purely off of government contracts, and had not actually ever turned a profit. So they were purely kept up by government contracts because... they're not a company that provides consumer value, they're a company that provides political value. And that's why they exist. And we'll find out why they would prop them up in just a few minutes. But he says stuff in here, commitment to risk-taking, innovation of American enterprises unparalleled, yada, yada, yada. We believe the rewards from the embrace of AI in the US will be immense. Here's the most important part, because this relates to the global American empire and Palantir's place in it. American influence in this unique hour comes not just from the controlling of the supply of AI, but also from the ability to strategically deploy the newest technologies across our most prominent corporations and institutions. Our unchallenged ability to channel and guide the demand, we create our own demand, for integrating AI seamlessly with essential data distribution and decision-making structures is what truly sets us apart. We built this company to arm and defend our most significant institutions, not tinker at the margins creating idle, decadent diversions. And I think that kind of sums up what this company is. They are a massive extrajudicial branch of the US government who works to expand American influence across the globe by basically creating demand for their own products so that all digital infrastructure in the West, Europe and the US is under one umbrella, which is Palantir. That's what it comes across to me. He basically said it there. And now we can get a more in-depth look at the man himself. There's an interesting article from the New York Times asking a pretty reasonable question, saying Alex Karp has money and power, so what does he want? And I'll draw out some of the highlights that they say from here. They start off, Mr. Karp is a lean, extremely fit billionaire with unruly salt and pepper curls. I will say I get massive Ex Machina vibes from this guy, especially given a lot of his justification for it is, well, if we didn't do it, somebody else would, and they would be worse, and you would be suffering under them, so you've got to suffer under us instead, which is basically Oscar Isaac's justification in Ex Machina. Either way, he has ADHD, great start, and can't hide if he's not interested in what somebody is saying. After a hyperspurt of talking, he loses energy and has to recharge on the stationary bike or by reading. Even though he thinks of himself as different, he seems to like being different. It's not mentioned in this article, but I have seen another article where they mention that his office is filled with life-size cardboard cutouts of himself. Because
that's the sign of a well-adjusted man.
because it makes him feel more comfortable. He enjoys being a provocateur on stage and in interviews. He says, I'm a Jewish, racially ambiguous dyslexic, so I can say anything. Unlike many executives in Silicon Valley, and this article was written back in June, I think, so this is pre-election. This is in the run-up to it. So take that into consideration here. It says, unlike many executives in Silicon Valley, Mr. Karp backed President Biden, cutting him a big check despite skepticism about his handling of the border and his over-reliance on Hollywood elites like Jeffrey Katzenberg. Now, June, remember, or July, whenever it was, or maybe August, actually. Let me just scroll down and make sure. August, apologies, folks. Now he's supporting President Kamala Harris, but still has vociferous complaints about his party. When he donates, he says, he does it in multiples of 18 because it's mystical. 18 brings good luck in the tradition of Kabbalah. I gave Biden $360,000. Born in New York and raised outside Philadelphia in a leftist family, he has a Jewish father who was a pediatrician and a black mother who was an artist. They were social activists who took him to civil rights marches and other protests. His uncle, Gerald D. Janes, is an economics and African American studies professor at Yale. His brother Ben is an academic who lives in Japan. I just think I've always viewed myself as I don't fit in, and I can't really try to. My parents' background just gave me a primordial subconscious bias that anything that involves we fit in together does not include me. I think the only way I can explain it politically is like, if fascism comes, I'll be the first or second person on the wall. Is this painting a picture of the sort of guy you want to have an insane amount of influence on global politics?
It's like the perfect formula to engineer someone to do harm to society.
By his own statements, he is completely unsituated, has no loyalty to any one time, place, or people. He is an anywhere person, and he is in charge of the company that provides a ridiculous amount of digital infrastructure that allows people to steal your information. Do you think he's going to do this for a good reason? He says that he thinks in America and Europe, the inability or unwillingness to secure borders fuels authoritarianism. Okay, let's hear him out here. I see it as pretty simple. You have an open border, you get the far right, he said. And once you get them, you can't get rid of them. We saw it in Brexit, we see it in Le Pen in France, you see it across Europe, now you see it in Germany. So what this is suggesting to me, and you'll see that his claim that his company's ability to help prevent terrorist attacks is the reason that Europe is not even further right, as he puts it. Now, you may see this as a good thing. He is preventing terrorist attacks, so he says. Obviously, preventing innocent civilian deaths is always a good thing. However, his stated reasons for doing so suggest to me that he's not doing it because he has any concern for the actual well-being of, say, European peoples. He's not doing it because he has respect for our culture, our histories, or traditions, or even disagrees with our demographic replacement. He's doing it because if he didn't, then you would get Hitler too. That's his own stated views right here. You would get Hitler too, and that would be even worse. So he's not trying to help us, he's trying to help manage managerial democracy and help manage our slow demographic replacement. That's what I'm getting from this.
Great.
Mr. Karp sometimes gets emotional in his defense of Palantir. In June, when he received an award named in honor of Dwight Eisenhower at the DC Gala for National Security Executives, he teared up. He said that when he lived in Germany, he often thought about the young men from Iowa and Kansas who risked their lives to free people like me during World War II. He's very, very obsessed with one aspect of his history, by the sounds of it, of his ancestral history. He also said that he was honored to receive an award named after the president who had integrated schools by force. Yeah, one of those people who, sad to say, you can agree with the outcome or not, used a massive overstep of central governmental power and literally sent in the army to force people at gunpoint to integrate their schools. He's like, this is a good thing, which suggests to me, as long as the outcomes are what I'm after, tyranny is fine. Unsurprising from somebody like this. Let's go into the actual history of the company then. He's the vanguard of what Mark Milley, the retired general and former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has called the most significant fundamental change in the character of war ever recorded in history. In his new world, unorthodox Silicon Valley entrepreneurs like Mr. Karp and Elon Musk are woven into the fabric of America's national security. Palantir itself was founded in 2003 by a gang of 5, including Karp and his old Stanford Law School classmate Peter Thiel, now the company's chairman. It was backed in part by nearly $2 million from In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital arm. Literally funded by CIA money. In the wake of 9/11, the CIA bet on Palantir gobbling up data and auguring where the next terrorist attacks would come from. Palantir uses multiple databases to find the bad guy, even, as Mr. Karp put it, if the bad guy actually works for you. So again, in the wake of 9/11, they go, we've passed the Patriot Act now. We need companies who can use the Patriot Act to the fullest extent. So the CIA starts handing out money to these companies in an attempt to get one that will actually work for them. Peter Thiel, Alex Karp. I know Peter Thiel, Alex Karp seem like they come from different sides of the political aisle. Karp went for Biden and Kamala. Thiel went for Donald Trump. But at the same time, there are shared goals, even on both sides of the aisle, that they all have. Because it is the Uni-Party, and even the power brokers that handle the money behind the Uni-Party also have shared goals, and that is to spread American influence across the world. Being European in an American vassal state, I know we've got plenty of your American viewers watching this right now. This isn't personal against you. I do not want to be ruled by America. I do not think that the version of America that Thiel or Karp has in their mind is one that harks back to the traditions of America starting from the founding and recognizes it as a place created by Europeans.
It's obviously not good for Americans as well.
It's not good for Americans either. He sees it as a set of global democratic values that have to be spread. What I'm essentially saying is he's a neocon. He's a neocon who's going to support any war that will spread what he considers to be American democratic values across the world, which always ends up going so well, doesn't it? Upon starting, it says, it carries on, they decided to seek out John Poindexter, a retired rear admiral who was dubbed the Godfather.
Real name.
Real name.
Poindexter.
A retired rear admiral who was dubbed the godfather of modern surveillance. Admiral Poindexter has been forced to resign as President Ronald Reagan's national security advisor after the, drumroll please, Iran-Contra scandal.
I just realised I went to bang the table, sorry.
Yeah. After 9/11, he then worked at the Pentagon on a surveillance program called Total Information Awareness. This is a fantastic pedigree. This is such a great pedigree for the company, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely horrifying.
The company is often credited with helping locate Osama bin Laden so Navy SEALs could kill him, but it's unclear if that's true, and Karp won't confirm whether it is or not. He does crow a little bit about Western civilization resting on Palantir's shoulders, noting that without its software, you would have had massive terror attacks in Europe already, like October 7th style. We already had those. We already had plenty of those. Mm-hmm. And you didn't help. Maybe you helped ones that we don't know about, but we have already had massive terror attacks, and I don't see you crying about those. I don't see him going like, oh, the Bataclan, such a terrible thing to happen. The MEM bombing arena bombing was such a terrible thing to happen. But he says if we had those kinds of attacks, like October 7, which is the worst terror attack, he believes it would have propelled the far right to power. Palantir doesn't do business with China, Russia, or any other countries that are America's enemies, and Palantir got its start in intelligence and defense, and has since sprouted across the government through an array of contracts. It helps the IRS to identify tax fraud, and the FDA to prevent supply chain disruptions to get drugs to market quicker. So every aspect of this company seems very suspicious and very shady, and not in our best interests as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, they like to wrap it up in all of these, we're helping you, we're saving you from being attacked by terrorists, but the main thing that he seems to care about is spreading American democratic values across the world, even where they don't fit, and also making sure that the goose step, as he puts it, doesn't return to Europe. I do not trust this man. I do not trust this company. I do not think that you should trust this company. There's way more involved in all of this, but I only have a limited amount of time, and so I think I'm going to end it there.
That's some good research, though.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Got a bunch of comments here to read through.
Yeah.
Are you all right there, Stelios? You didn't say much during that whole...
No, because I wanted to listen to what you were saying.
Any comments now that you've heard it all?
Well, I mean, I want to do more research, but I really distrust when, companies are trying to tell me that they care about. Yeah.
They're like the prime example of public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm. Also, when they're talking about they're spreading alarmism, I think that's dangerous.
Yeah. So that's
alarmism, just calling everything fascism.
I agree.
It's just as bad as thinking that there's never such a thing like that.
Oh, God. Gandalf, a Palantir is a dangerous tool, Saruman. Saruman, why? Why should we fear to use it? The Palantir is then showing footage of Lily Phillips. OnlyFans. Gross.
Good segment continuity.
Matt G. Hammond, it's my understanding Peter Thiel founded Palantir to stop the worst companies from getting access to this technology. Whatever issue you have with it, know that it would have been worse. That's always an excellent smokescreen to say that, well, of course, as I mentioned, we've got to tyrannize you, because if it wasn't us, it'd be somebody else tyrannizing you that's worse. That's a blank check for all kinds of tyranny to be done to you. So don't let them give you that excuse. Also, it wasn't started by Peter Thiel to stop the worst companies. It was started so that the CIA could have an extra branch of government to spy on people. That's why it started.
It's like the mafia saying, well, be grateful we cut off your finger. We could have killed you. It's that same sort of philosophy of a bully threatens to do something worse, potentially, and so they can take a little bit more from you. And I appreciate you're trying to inject some positivity, but I think it's unequivocally bad.
Thanks for watching, folks. If you'd like to support us, go sign up to the website, £5 a month, or you could buy someone a premium gift subscription, which is a new feature that we have, and go and watch Bo's Epoch series on the rise of Vercingetorix. He's doing a very, very long and very, very detailed breakdown of the life of Julius Caesar. And of course, part 13 is Vercingetorix becoming the opposition, the Celtic opposition to Julius Caesar. I'm not going to spoil it. Go and watch that. And of course, go and follow us on X at lotuseaters_com for when we upload things and for more information.